All right. Does it come up?
You're good to go.
Does it say on your side?
It does. It's recording.
That's good. At least people are like, are you recording this? Yeah, so I just talking about this new series I wanted to do. And I was thinking about the mind and how it, I always try and think of these analogies that people can relate to. And um, it's like having someone sitting beside you in a car and you're like in a totally, well, fairly foreign territory. And this person is just your guide and is giving you directions, right, of where to go, what to do. And this person, their goal is to protect the self, right, or protect the protect your story. And that, so you're listening to this to this guide, and it's okay, turn left, okay, turn right, okay, go down there 3 miles or whatever, and then turn left. And every once in a while they get more agitated and then get more concerned about where you're turning, and they'll say like like, okay, turn right, then you'll turn right. And then a few miles later down the road, they'll be like, well, why did you turn right there? I'm like, well, because you, you told me to turn right. Yeah, but that wasn't good. That was not a good idea. You're such an idiot. We should have turned left. And anyway, so it kind of goes on like that in the
That's
story.
our mind playing mind games with us.
Well, yeah, that's the mind. Because I was trying to think, so if I'm talking about this, like, so the question is, well, why do I care? Right? So the average person be like, well, why do I care about trying to learn about my mind and how it works and how it operates? And well, because your mind is really seriously in all ways impacting your life. And by you not having any real idea of what it does, it's, you're just being jolted about by those 8 or 4 winds.
Right. They're, so you do what your mind tells you, and then you're giving yourself shit because you did that.
Yeah, that was this. Well, that kind of came from this one teacher. He was talking about. I don't know. He was playing a tennis match or something, and I don't know. He really screwed up the match, and he lost. And so the mind was just, his voices and head were just kind of berating him. And he finally just stopped, and he just said, "Well, where were you when I needed you? Right? You had all this great advice now. Like, where were you with all this great advice in the moment when I needed it?" Obviously, the mind was there, and the mind was the one that was giving him the advice and what to do. But it so quickly can just go, well, you should have done that. And there wasn't something else I was thinking of. Oh, that for the average person, like, I don't even think that the average person has any real sense of that there is this thing called mind. I think they just think it's them. right? They're so it's all just one blob.
Mhm.
So that's yeah, that's why to work with it. Um, and what else? So I was going to do a part about kind of the mind and the body and how the mind and the body work together, and kind of using anxiousness as a example of that. Because I think that's another experience that people they just experience the whole thing as one big glom.
Right. Rather than realizing, okay, I'm feeling this sensation in my belly, built up to this. My God,
Yeah,
oh my God, I got to do something. I have to do something.
yeah, that there's sort of components to it. Like there's the mind, there's the voices talking about it, and then there's the body sensations that we're feeling. And like one thing that's always kind of intrigued me about it is that everybody focuses, well, not everybody, but there's a lot of attention placed on the thoughts, right? And not necessarily that much attention paid on to the body sensations. But for the most part, I think if we weren't feeling the uncomfortable body sensations, that we probably couldn't really care less about the thoughts, because the thoughts are just going on, right? Does that make sense?
Well, sort of like
So
talk
why?
about thoughts, but I mean, if I'm not feeling body sensations, I could still be feeling, like, oh my God, what decision do I make? What do I do now? What do I do now? Right? Like I could still be.
Would you though? Would you if wouldn't there be corresponding body sensations to not knowing what? Like if there was just the thoughts in your head, what decision should I make? And there wasn't an underlying dis-ease
Right.
around the decision.
So how does the emotions fit in there then? You're just they're just part of the body sensation.
Yeah. Well, they are the body sensations,
Mm.
I think. All right. So, I mean, if you're feeling anger, it's pretty much a body thing.
Yeah, but then the mind takes it, and turns it into this category, anger, right?
Right. But it takes it and, well, it has a story about it as well. Right. Such and such shouldn't have done this to me, and I'm going to do this to such and such because of that. Like it's interesting. I was watching Handmaid's Tale last night, and I always get so annoyed when a show is so good that it makes me want to punch somebody.
It sucks you in.
Yeah, like I could just feel it like like there was just this person that was torturing June, and he was just such an asshole. And then I could just, like, every fiber of my being, if that person had been in front of me, I just, like, they would just be the natural course to pounce on them. And I always, like, I watch a show and I'll be like, oh my God, this show has got me so much. I want to kill that person. Right? That's just ridiculous.
Right.
Like, it's got nothing to do with me. It's not real.
Some poor schmuck actor there.
Yeah, some poor schmuck actor.
Yeah, who's gotta take all this energy directed at him. Hatred just thrown at him.
Yeah, now there's Twitter. Was it the guy from Game of Thrones? The the king, that really that young king. Did you watch Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Yeah. So you remember he was such an asshole.
Oh, the boy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What was his name?
And like everybody on the planet just wanted to gouge his eyes out.
Listen. Okay, well, look at Malfoy, right? The Harry Potter series. That poor kid, right?
Oh, the Vaughn kid? The
What?
blonde one? The blonde
Yeah,
one? Yeah.
yeah, Malfoy, right? Like, so that would probably have even more. Like every child on the earth, would see him, and if kids, it would be even harder to differentiate. Oh yeah, this guy's just an actor, right?
Yeah.
Just, yeah, like just all that. But yet it is. It's like this visceral, real thing. Yeah. Or it could be the other flip side, right? We fall madly in love with these people.
Right. Yeah.
Develop these, you know,
And they're not real.
they're not real. They're just like an actor, character.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, those are
I
good
was,
examples of how our minds kind of play games with us. And
yeah. I was noticing the other day that I can have an emotion that's from the outside would seem that it's caused by another person, but have no blaming of that person, like just being angry. Do you know what I mean? Like just feeling, like having anger, having the emotion of anger arise, and not buying into the story about it, but the anger still being there anyways.
mm, yeah, I don't know if I've had that one. But one I did have this week was interesting, where I just went for a walk in the morning, and then I was coming back home and saw somebody there here that I met briefly. And so I was just like, good morning. And I don't know what was going on with them, but they kind of turned around and looked at me, scowled, and mumbled "morning" or something, right? Like they were just, it wasn't a friendly greeting at all. And so right away, my thing was, oh my God, they just really don't like me, and putting all this story into it. And at the same time, I'm seeing, okay, so that's just a story, but there's still those emotions there, right? But what I did was like, wow, well, could I just give that person permission to just be wherever the hell they are, right? Like instead of wanting to fix it or make them see they're wrong to dislike me or whatever story, instead of trying to even just drop my story or change my story. I just gave them permission, 100% unequivocal permission to be absolutely where they are perfectly. And then it was just poof, it was gone. All that reaction inside of me was just totally gone. I just let them totally have, you know what? Who am I to try to think that you should be feeling any other way than whatever you are, despite whatever is going on for you, or all my story about any of it? It doesn't even matter. I can just let you be wherever you're at. It was so freeing. I don't think I've ever been able to do that like that before, right? Like there's been, okay, I'll just feel what I'm feeling. And I just kind of like, whoa, what if I just let them feel what they're feeling instead?
That's really interesting. So this is kind of a pet um, curiosity of mine, because the popular model around emotions is about expressing, right?
Mhm.
Like there that there's something to do with that emotion, and you just change the what did you change? I mean, I was gonna say you changed the narrative, but I mean you kind of did, right? You totally unplugged it from having any bearing on the story of Michelle. You just completely disconnected it from the story of Michelle.
Mhm.
And
Even, yeah, but even though I recognize that maybe he was, upset with me about something, but it has nothing to do with me.
well, that's what I mean. So
Yeah.
the story
So,
about Michelle, right? So
so it's just, yeah, exactly. It is all just his, and give, but not even just, yeah, but to really give him permission to totally be there, right? To make it totally okay for him to just be wherever he was.
so that's like, to me, that's, I don't know, I say more effective, but it seems like a more efficient way to work with emotions and to release them. Right? I mean, Hale, he would kind of, I guess, one approach would be like, can you actually find the one there that's affected by this person? Right? I mean, you you kind of did that in another way, but this one, another one of my pet is like around the self, right? And there was this time when I was really trying to explore the shift in the self and the perspective on the self, and I was dreaming. I think I was having a nap during the day or something, and I was dreaming. And in this dream, I was really angry about something. I have no idea what, but someone had done me wrong in the dream, right? And I was super angry. And I instantly woke up out of it. You know, like you kind of in the daytime, you totally all of a sudden you're awake, and it was so like it was such a clean break, and I could see, I could remember the story that was going on in the dream. I could see that it was just a story and just a dream, and it had had nothing to do with my living life. But I could still very much feel the anger and the anger in my body.
Mhm.
But but when I woke up out of it, like I mean, it doesn't sound like it was quite as dissolving as what you experienced, but because it was still there, and that was kind of the one of the parts of it. So I could sit there and I could feel this body sensations that I would identify with anger were going through my body, but it was kind of the exhaust or the like the like when you have an adrenaline rush in a car or something, and after it's happened, it's just like, and that's kind of what it was like. And that's when it really made sense to me that, like, seeing through the story of the self, how instantaneous it can be to release emotions and release whatever whatever attachments we have to it. So, like in your situation, I mean, you could have easily, like, it's I find it interesting that it happened to you, because I mean, your mind could have just, what happened, and still happens to me, is like it just kind of has a cycle, right? Above water and below water, and like throughout the day, all of a sudden above water, oh, that person was such a dick, and why are they so mean, and what an asshole, and then it's just like, then it's gone, and then it comes back up again. And so it's interesting that it just completely, like, it didn't come back
No,
at all for you.
no, there's nothing attached to this individual. No. Yeah. But I've been practicing that film lately. But it hasn't, that was really quick and easy. I've been practicing that in my interactions with people, right, that I'm closer to. It's like, well, what if this is just where they're at? This idea of me even wanting other people to change, you know, be happy or be this or that. I mean, it's kind of this manipulation. It is. It's a form of manipulation, really.
It's control,
Yeah.
right? It's the one of the three things. So we use control to get approval.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So you're just kind of letting go of that need for control.
Yeah. My need yeah, the other to be any other way than how we are.
But yeah, to me, it seems a bit more profound. I don't know, than how you're, like, that you're, because it sounds like there's a really deeper letting go of your story. I don't know if that's just my favorite way of viewing the world, but typically we are constantly on high alert to what's impacting our story,
Right.
right? And how are we doing now, and then how are we seen in this person's eyes, how are we seen in that person's eyes, and so that you I don't know what's your thoughts on this, but to me, that you're so that it's so not the word, I guess the word is easy, but it's almost like like there's kind of I want to think of the word, a lubrication or a looseness to it, or does that?
Well, it feels, yeah. I mean, it was like really light in it. I mean, it was freeing. I'm thinking about the story. It was like, because what I did is I gave the other person complete permission to be in whatever story they're in. And
Right.
and through that way, it kind of dissolved my story because I got to see, I just sort of saw it has nothing to do with me. Maybe it's coming to that piece, right? That, things are personal. We welcome that everything's personal, and dropping that piece that it isn't personal, maybe. But I've been doing that, like I said, I've been kind of trying to do that more and more. Like this idea, like I was saying, of like seeing that there's just a real opportunity right now in my life to drop a lot of my habitual neural pathways, my habitual ways of interpreting life, like to just kind of drop there. Yeah, and like to see, like to keep questioning, well, like sort of like, well, what does that even mean, right? That kind of piece, right? What does that even mean? What is any of that? And seeing how much our ways of being are so cultural, right? They're just how we've been taught we should act. Like, it's like an idea of rudeness. Every culture has a different interpretation of what rudeness is. And what is rudeness? Rudeness is when someone does something that implies they have zero respect for me over here, right?
Yeah.
And it comes in all kinds of forms, like belching. Some people will be so affronted by that if you just let out a big burp, right? Like that's just the worst thing. Whereas other cultures, it's totally not that way.
It's
And
something
even,
else.
what's that?
There's
Yeah,
something else in that culture.
yeah, right.
It's agreement.
Yeah, these agreements, but even that, what does it matter? So then someone maybe intentionally, launches something at us to show us that that they have no respect for us or something. Like, so what? Like, why is that so important? Like this idea of feeling respected by other people, right? Like, what was the wind? The fourth one, the societal one? To be,
Fame and disrepute.
yeah, fame and disrepute. Like, oh God, now everyone's going to hear about me and how I'm not this or that, and I'm going to have disrepute or whatever, all of it. Like, so what?
Well, what would other people say if you ask, so what? Why? Just to put yourself in other, in maybe your old shoes. what
Yeah. Okay. Well,
what
so what? Yeah. So then people, if people don't approve of you, it'd be hard to find a place to rent, maybe, or have support from people. I don't know.
and then what?
Well, and then you would be living under a bridge somewhere and
Right.
starving to death or something, right? Like that's part of it.
Right.
But there's a way to be just out of that, but it doesn't mean you have to be unkind to people.
Right. And that's always where the mind goes, right? That this social construct is what's keeping us civil and kind to each other. And it's not, I don't think it's true. I think the kindness just comes from that dissolving of the sense of separation.
Hmm. And it's an instant thing because, yeah, like, someone's fell on the sidewalk in front of you, just stoop down and pick, help them up or check on them. If it's not, oh, is someone going to watch me do this? And afterwards, the mind might come in and start judging that. And, oh, look at you. Aren't you a good citizen or something, right? But in the moment,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, my sense of it is our mind's always coming in after. Right.
Yeah, there you go. You're the next, your passenger in your car. Coming back to that.
Right. But before we leave that, so I want to just get more of a sense of what, because when you said like letting go of those neural pathways, right? And so do you have kind of a sense of why you want to let go of those neural pathways?
Well, I can see how they make me suffer. Right?
Right. Yeah. So say more about that.
Yeah, well, it is, right? This constant lifelong thing of it's that piece of trying to look at myself through another's eyes. Like how much that's made me suffer. Like, I don't know. I just read something recently where it said that, like, you know, if you weren't looking at yourself through other people's, you know, and if you stop kind of doing that and just land here and say, okay, well, what do I really know about myself more? As opposed to, that needing approval piece or something, right? Like that piece has been habitual for me though, of like sensing, okay, where's this person at? Do they like me? Oh, they don't like me. There must be something wrong with me. Okay, how do I fix that? What do I need to fix over here so that I'm a better person? Because obviously this person doesn't like me. So there's got to be something wrong here. As opposed to just stopping and checking in. And it's like, okay, right? Like just what do I know? What do I know that's true about me? Right? And just letting that be here instead. It's like, well, no, I know who I am. And it is the solid something here, whether it's like it doesn't not necessarily like an identity, but just there's this energy that's here. That's even if I'm looking at qualities, right? Like whatever, okay, all of it. I just really could see that too. Like this habitual piece of trying to look at myself through other people,
Hmm.
what they're seeing and feeling it out, how they see me. Like there's been so much suffering through that.
So it sounds like there's a acknowledgement. I'll put it into my words of of the personality of Michelle and a I guess in some ways a internal approval of that, or a sense that I don't know, just I don't know, a fancy word, but just that there's kind of an okayness about that. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is Michelle's, this is my personality, and I've seen enough of it in action that I feel pretty sure that this is its primary intention, and so relying much less on other people's judgments, or not even judgments, but assessment or scoring of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good summary.
What?
That's a good way. Yeah.
Well, that's what it sounds. It seems like that there's like kind of that this is, I don't even say who you want to be, but this is who I am, and I'm at peace with that, or how I am kind of aligns with my values, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm going too deep into this.
So, yeah, I mean, whatever it means or however it's analyzed, it's there's less suffering,
Well,
right?
that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the curiosity is so you communicate that there's this desire to rewire, right, or rewire these instantaneous things, or habitual things. And for me, it's always kind of a little bit behind the scenes. And oh, that's interesting. Like that, normally we don't want to change something until it's no longer serving us, right? Did you beep, or was that me?
That was me.
And so that's what I'm always curious about, is like, what did this person, what's going on for this person, that that they recognize that that's no longer serving them, and what is it that's no longer serving them, because that's pretty rare that a person comes to that, I think. What do you think?
Well, I think it's these talks with you.
What? These,
From my talks with you.
no. Yeah, I think it's accumulation.
But it,
A lot of these.
like there's little things. Like what was it that we talked about last week? There was I was describing like another person and how they were, and you just kept questioning that, and it's like, well, is that even true, and how can you know that? And that was one of the things, right? It's like, once again, these common words, person is this way, and when I usually say that, everyone goes, oh yeah, yeah, I could see that. But instead you were like, well, is that true? Like, you know how do you actually know that there's no things going on there, whatever, that what this word that you've even used
Yeah.
is accurate. And it's kind of like, oh my god, yeah, like what a disservice I've done to that other person by even putting these imagined labels on them.
Yeah.
And that was when it's, this piece about, well, then, I can just drop that and just interact with people in the moment. And oh yeah, okay, they're acting a certain way. This is what, and it's like, like, yeah. So can I just let them feel what they're feeling, and without it having to be anything to do with me?
Yeah, I thought about that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a lot of, in the language of, I don't know, psycho-spirituality, it all kind of seems to club together, right? That doesn't really, it kind of dismisses what's actually occurring,
Mm-hmm.
right? What, like we even talked about the shutting down, right? So that, and it's kind of like studying the brain, it's kind of how our brains work. Our brains are love's shortcuts, right? Because it's just so much input coming that we like shortcuts. I mean, then we can communicate shortcuts. But in those communicating those shortcuts, we're often we're we're not really in touch with what's actually happening. We're using
Yeah.
a concept, and we're we've bundled all this stuff into this concept, and we've transmitted that over to the other person, and it's kind of like, well, what's actually happening, right? And I think that really does us a disservice, like like I was like, to me, like the labels of anxiety and depression really suffer from that.
Oh, bullying. There's like, there's a whole, a whole movement of this anti-bullying thing, which I totally bought into. I used to totally buy into until I started working at the school where they were like, well, we don't. It was anti-bullying day, and the principal pulled me aside and said, well, we don't actually use those words.
As you were wearing pink or something.
Well, I was just talking to the kids about it, and so then I was like, what? Like it was just this foreign thing that culturally was accepted, and then she explained it to me. It's like, well, as soon as we use those words, it's putting people into categories of bully and victim. It has nothing to do with the actual actions, you know. So it's not that they didn't address things; they would address things instantly when things would happen. When one student was acting in a certain way, with another student, would take them and say, like, here's your actions. This is what I'm observing, and and so they totally dismantled this whole thing of, and it was like so eye-opening for me, because yeah, there's two words, bullying. And so now I hear it all the time. I'll hear students say, yeah, I'm getting bullied in school now. So then these kids have picked up on it. They have this whole language of seeing themselves as a victim, and these other kids all of a sudden take on this identity of a bully. And think of it from the children who are being labeled as bullies. They've
Yeah.
now had to take this on. Okay, this is how I am. I'm just this person that's this awful person. And rather than just being like, okay, oh, these actions aren't okay. I need to be aware of these actions and what my options would be instead, or right. So it's totally like you said, like, see that so well, like this language, and it's like with religion, right? It's like the dogma. Well, now we've used all these words to do with, or it's like the psychology words that are dogma, and it just puts things into a box, right? It's a box now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of lazy. and and like you said, like, yeah, it's not.
But it's unconscious too. Like I was unconscious. I didn't realize that I hadn't looked at it in that way before. Like, oh my God, yeah.
Right. Yes. I mean, because it's not lazy. I mean, it's efficient, I guess, is one way to say it. Right. It's efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
And but as soon as we got that box, yeah, then we can identify what's in the box and what's not in the box.
yeah. So bully, victim, right? And instead of just like, okay, this is just the behavior that needs to be,
Yeah.
talked about and explored and corrected or whatever. Even if I don't know, correct is the right word, but it's it's the behavior. It's not the identity. I remember years ago thinking, like, mom was telling us that instead of just saying, I'm angry, or you make me so angry, right? Like that whole
Yeah.
piece of rather than just saying, well, I'm feeling this emotion of anger, right? Like the words are they are important.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's tricky because, like, even anger, right, it's useful as a way to convey a whole group of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's useful to convey it, but when we convey it and then lose or never actually, I don't know if that's weaned out of us as an early age, but we no longer recognize what's all in there, right? What's all in that package that we're conveying to that person, right? So I mean, I won't say to someone, well, I'm feeling these really strong sensations in my in my chest right now, and my hands are in fists. I'll say, well, I'm feeling angry about this situation, but I also find it that I also need to, in my own perspective, be aware of all the components going on there, right?
Mm-hmm.
The body sensations, the thoughts, the story about me, blah blah blah. Yeah. So yeah, I was thinking I was also maybe going to do a piece on language. Not quite sure how to maybe I don't need to. Maybe people can watch this. And that'll
Got it
be it.
all wrapped up.
But I think it'd be interesting for you, like I mean, I don't have that much exposure to people in the spiritual. There's a whole nother one, right? On the spiritual landscape to witness it. That'd be interesting for you to do in the eyes and stuff like that, and monitoring and just seeing how prevalent It is. And to me, the only the only time it's an issue, like, is if it's causing us to suffer.
Yeah.
And I find that usually when we recognize what causes us to suffer, it's kind of an automatic that we apply the same lens to others, usually. Yeah.
Meaning, for
Well,
description, you apply the same lens to others.
well, like when you said, if we use the word bully, right? So we've categorized that person, right, as to who they are. We've created a really quick shortcut as to describing what that person's like as an individual, right? What their values are and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And that it's not fair to do that to others. And I guess, so what I'm saying is I kind of started the whole language thing with myself and seeing how my language was really doing a disservice to my peace and sense of completeness, sense of freedom, my suffering. And so then it's just kind of automatic that it's done to others, right? Because that conversation we had last week, right? So you were talking with someone else, and it's like instantly, it just arose in me that is probably doing a disservice to that person, because because I see how it does a service to me. I know that it's kind of like, as we start becoming kinder to ourselves and less judgmental to ourselves, it just seems like instantly we start applying the same lens to others, right? Whatever we're able to forgive in ourselves, it's just so bizarre that self-compassion just kind of instantly becomes other compassion for others.
Yeah, I totally see that. Whereas we think it should be, the other way around or something.
Right. And that's,
there should be, loving kindness, compassion towards others. And then there's an appendice, well, and yourself. Like, not that that's how, but like it's more.
right.
The idea of compassion is often the initial thought. It's
Compassion towards others.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's asked backwards.
Yeah.
And it seems selfish. And that's kind of, in some ways, it's kind of, I kind of view others in a different, I mean, this may be the same exact thing, but like the more I have a sense of the suffering that I went through, and how hypnotized I was into the self, the story of the self. Like it just, when I see others hypnotized in it, like it's definitely kind of a recognition, right? That, yeah, that's like, yeah, I was there, and it makes sense that a person be like that, right? And there's almost like a curiosity, like the fellow that was really grouchy to you, right? To me, there's just this underlying curiosity. What is what's the story going on there for that person, right? That they are so embroiled in their dream world that
Mhm.
they lash out at another. I have this this CD from Eckhart Tolle, and it's one of my favorite ones of his, and it was done the day of 9/11, and they couldn't help but talk about that situation, and they were asked, this woman was asking him, how, you know, what do you make of all this evil, right? And he was so insightful about it that he just talked about that the mind gets so enveloped in its story that that we don't actually see others as other beings. Those others just become a mind object, and and they're just like they're, so it's, he says it's easy to kill that other person because they're just a mind object. They're not another actual living entity.
Yeah. Mm.
So should we stop the right now?
Okay, that was
Huh?
that's a good one.
Yeah, you have to be careful I don't end it now. Okay. Do you have anything else to add about this subject before we?
Stop the recording. No, that was interesting. We started off about the mind talk, and mind to the body connection. Then we went to emotions and more mind stuff. But I really like that image of the passenger in the seat with the running commentary. That's a good one.
It is. Yeah, and oh, it is. Yes, it is a good one. But then I kind of, I don't know. I'll try and make this short. I kind of, as the talks progress, there's a talk about the a sharing about the sense of self, and we kind of get to a point that we're now familiar with the territory, and where this passenger is directing us to go. We're no longer that, we're not interested in going where he's trying to go anymore. Right. So his whole focus is on saving the self and saving the identity. And for us, that's not an interest anymore. And so this passenger just keeps kind of, and it just doesn't interest us. So it's kind of my I don't know, maybe I have to make a cartoon out of it or something, but my sense of why quieting the mind is not necessarily needed.
Mm.
All right, I'll stop it there.